Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala amma ba'd. Raise her dua. So the Prophet ﷺ said, if you make dua for Jannah, then make dua for Al-Firdaus, because it is the highest level of Jannah. Okay? So I wanted to start off by you understanding that aiming high and raising your dua is the essence of our deen, and it's what Allah and His Messenger guide us to. You will not find Allah and His Messenger telling us and guiding us to aim low. They will not tell us, who do you think you are to be making dua? They will not say to us, you can make dua for the akhirah, but don't make dua for this worldly life. You gotta just focus on the hereafter. Don't care about, no. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us to make the dua, Rabbana atina fid dunya hasana wa fil akhirati hasana wa qina adhab an-nar. So this is a true story. In the early days of Al-Maghrib Institute, there was a sister who was working for us, and she was overseas in a Muslim country. And she had the opportunity to meet the president of that country. She was going to meet him for like 5 minutes, and she went in this internal kind of like email group, and she said, what should I ask for? What should I ask the king? What should I ask the president? And so there was this big, long debate, and everybody was giving her suggestions on how to maximize the time that she would have in front of the king and what she would ask for. And so imagine this. She goes in front of the king, and then the king says, yes, what would you like? And she says, man, I have some groceries that I need to do. And I wonder about my Instagram account. How's it going? How many likes did I get on my Instagram account? Allahu Akbar. Sami Allahu liman hamidah. And then the opportunity just goes. Every day, we're standing in front of Malikul Muluk, the King of Kings, the Lord of the universe. And even though we have that moment, we have our 5 minutes, and it doesn't happen just once. At Dhuhr time it happens, at Asr time it happens, and Maghrib and Isha. We're always standing there asking for nothing. We're just asking, we keep standing and asking for nothing. And I'll say this, I was gonna say it later on, but let me start off by saying, if you feel that your life sucks, it's probably a direct reflection of your dua. Your dua probably sucks too. If your life sucks, your duas probably suck. If we take a look at what you're making dua for, it just sucks. Just really low aim and so on. And so that's what we're here to do. We're to raise our dua. Now, if, some people say something like, well, doesn't Allah know what's in my heart? Why do I have to actually put in effort to make our du'as? If Allah knew what was in your heart and you thought that this dua thing was automated and that you could just sit back and do nothing, then why does Allah tell you to make dua? وَقَالَ رَبُّكُمُ ادْعُونِي, and your Lord said, ادْعُونِي أَسْتَجِبْ لَكُمْ. Call upon me, I will answer you. So the verse could have been, don't call upon me, it's already automated, I will answer you anyway. No, you actually have to put in the effort. You have to be the one standing in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, raising your hands, raising your dua, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will answer you. So why don't people do it? And here in this audience, you have good believing sisters, inshallah ta'ala. Good believing sisters, so I'm going to talk about that. So we're not talking about somebody's like, oh, I'm in the street, I'm doing like horrible things. We do horrible things too, but it's kind of like different kind of horrible thing. If you remember back in the day, Princess Diana, do you guys remember what her, in the 90s, what her cause was? Like she would go around speaking to all these world governments. What was her cause? Can somebody tell me in the comments? What was the cause she was working for? Landmines. Shabana says landmines, landmine awareness. So landmine is this. So in times of war, in order to defend a huge piece of land, the army would put in these landmines. Landmines are, you probably know what landmines are, but they're quiet, they're hidden, they're underground. And if somebody comes and steps on it, the landmine doesn't actually explode. It explodes once your foot comes off of the landmine. So you'll step on it, you'll hear a click, your next step will be the explosion. And subhanAllah, like in Afghanistan, the Russians used to use landmines that would not kill a person. And this is a really interesting thing. They would not kill a person, it would maim them. So they're not powerful enough to kill a person, they would maim them. And the reasoning was, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive, this kind of evilness, that they would wish that an Afghani family would have a maimed child because it would slow them down. If the child was killed, then the child would be, would not be a burden. Obviously, it's an emotional burden, but it would not be a burden on the family. They wanted to burden the families with maimed children and maimed family members. So landmines, when you're dealing with landmines, let's go towards dua. You believe in dua. I don't think anybody here doesn't believe in dua, but in our lives, we have these hidden landmines that we put in our lives, that when we're moving towards dua, we step on them. So here's an example. I'll let you guys tell me a few examples of landmines. We all have some sort of landmine that holds us back from making dua. We're all excited. Yeah, I'm gonna make dua. I'm gonna cross this field in my life and I'm gonna move towards my dream duas, but then we step on these landmines. First landmine, who am I to ask for good things when the whole world is suffering? And pop, no more duas. Dua is gone. Actually, did you put the landmines or did Shaytan put the landmine? Here's another landmine. Somebody wants to make dua for something good and I don't deserve this. What other landmines do you guys? Yes, Shamsa says, I don't deserve this. I'm a bad person. Who am I to ask for good things when I've committed sin such and such? Good things are forever. I'm a hypocrite. Who am I to deserve this? Oh, here's a beautiful one. I always hear this one come up because when we do Visionaire, there's I want people to start making dua and they're excited about it, but these hidden landmines will just pop up and it will hold a person back from making dua. Here's a beautiful one. What if I make dua for something and it's bad for me? It's better I don't make dua in the first place. Right? You're going to make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's going to send you a snake. Step on it. So better not ask for that snake. Right? So our aim when we're making dua, our aim is to make the best dua. The answer to the dua is guaranteed. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَقَالَ رَبُّكُمْ وَدْعُونِي, your Lord said, call upon me and I will answer you. Actually, there's one more landmine I see somebody wrote, which is a really good landmine. Mayzura says, if I ask for things, I'll be greedy. Shouldn't I be thankful to Allah for what I have? And making dua equals greediness. Better not make dua. When I teach Visionaire in Ramadan time, when we come towards that class, people have these hidden landmines. These kind of thoughts don't show up so aggressively and so straightforward. They're hidden, they're undercover. And only when you try to make a positive change in your life, do these landmines start to pop on you. They don't knock you out, they maim you. So you will continue to make dua, but you will make it in a maimed way where your heart and soul is not fully into the dua, or you're not making dua exactly for the thing that you want to. Or here's another one, really, kind of clever, make dua for everybody else except yourself. Did anybody do that one? right? All the moms, you know, when you have like a grandmother, never makes dua for herself, makes dua for the grandkids, makes dua for the great grandkids. Why don't you make dua for yourself? Oh, because I love my grandkids. Great, we all love our grandkids. But why don't you make dua for yourself? So even in old age, Shaytan can still trick us. We're not making dua for ourselves too. Now, let me give you this picture. Let's suppose you entered a masjid or you entered a home and you saw somebody standing up and praying. Now, this person is praying and they're crying. They're crying really badly. And you're waiting for a very long time. They haven't gone into ruku, or they're in ruku, or they're in sajda, and they're in that position for a very, very long time. And they're crying and they're shaking. And you start to even feel sorry. What has happened to this person? What do you think if you saw somebody like, picture that, you saw somebody crying and shaking, what do you think happened to them that would make them cry like that? Give me some comments. What do you think would happen? Picture it. You see somebody doing that. Loss of a loved one, someone died, grief, heartbroken, pain, regret, very big sin. Okay, what if I told you this person had everything? This person had everything. Allah gave him everything. He gave him all his past sins forgiven and anything he would do in the future forgiven. And so Aisha saw him praying like this, and she said to him, why are you praying so intensely when Allah's forgiven all your past sins or anything that you would do in the future? And the Prophet ﷺ said, أَفَلَا أَكُونُ عَبْدًا شَكُورًا. Shouldn't I be a thankful servant of Allah? So this prayer, the reason that I asked you guys, like that kind of a dua, what the initial thought is that it comes from loss, that it comes from, you know, heartbroken or some pain. But in this case, we see the example of the Prophet ﷺ that it is coming from shukr. It is coming from thankfulness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah has given him everything, and this is how he responds. And so there's so many lessons from this, but the key lesson that I want you to get from it is this is how you make dua even when you have everything. Even when you think, well, I have a nice job, I have a nice career, I have a nice family, I have good health, why should I be making dua? No, even you need to be up all night praying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, asking for dunya and akhirah. رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسَنَةً وَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ. Now here's the pitfalls of when you don't raise your dua. So I've seen this. So somebody comes into our classes and they're learning about dua, and then they say something along the lines like, you know what, I'm just going to aim low. You know, the landmines have got me. I'm a little bit maimed. So I am going to make dua because that's what Muslims do, but I'm going to aim low. I'm going to be like, you know, not actually make dua for the things that I want. I'm just going to aim low. Raise your dua. Can somebody give me an example of an aimed low dua? Like, it's not exactly what you want, but it's okay. You feel like, hey, I can get by maimed with this type of dua. Anybody got an example of that? To just pass an exam? Okay. Okay, so somebody kind of like, you know, like, oh Allah, just give me a passing mark on this exam. I don't trust that I can actually get a good mark. Just give me a passing mark. Or somebody saying, you know what, yeah, Allah, I need just enough to survive, thank you. Oh Allah, just let me have a decent husband, decent, not an indecent one, a decent one. Give me any job. Okay, so here's some examples. Somebody's not making dua for what they want. They're making dua just kind of like aiming low. There was a sister one year that felt like the newest Samsung, which I don't know what number they're on right now, but she felt like that was like greediness. And so I think she was making dua for like a Huawei or some other Nokia phone or something like that, because she felt she didn't deserve, or if she had it, this was greediness. Why should she have such an expensive phone when, there's other, phones that can get the job done, stuff like that. So you have some examples. I know some of you, a lot of you are doing this anyway, whether you put it in the comments or not. You're just aiming for what you think is like, hey, this is realistic. But here's what happens when you aim for realistic and you don't raise your du'as. Number one is you will not continue making dua. That's number one. You will not continue to make dua, meaning that if you aim low, you'll make dua once, 2 times, and then you're just going to stop making dua because you don't care. So imagine again, the sister, she wants the biggest Samsung and she loves it, but she starts making dua for a Nokia instead. And so she's like, yeah, Allah, give me a Nokia. And then the next day, she's not making dua anymore. So the consequence of not raising your dua is like you lose the gift of making dua. That's consequence number one. Consequence number two is dua isn't exciting for you anymore. Number two is you don't get excited to get into dua. So when it comes to excitement, when you have something that you're really caring about, you actually get excited to get into moments of dua. So give an example of that. Let's suppose you have a big exam, like a major exam, some entrance exam or something like that the next day. How does your salah look the night before when you're making that dua? In fact, you're looking forward to the salah so that you can make this kind of, that you can make your du'as. So you have this excitement that comes along with your prayers and moments when you can make a dua. And for example, if you really care about something, you're like, I need to go for Umrah. I need to drink Zemzem. I need to make dua at the Kaaba because I really care about this. So the benefit, I would say consequence is like something negative, but positive consequence of raising your dua is you start running towards worshiping Allah. So, and then you could do the opposite. It's if you aim low, you're almost like indifferent or running away from ibadah because you don't care about your du'as. When you aim low and you don't care. And number three is something that I said earlier, is that if your du'as suck, your life probably sucks too. So when you aim low and your du'as suck, your life is like kind of a reflection of your du'as. Your du'as suck, your life sucks, and that's all the consequence of raising your du'as. So you want to raise your du'as, but then there's this field of landmines that you're facing. And so when we teach dua in Ramadan time, when we teach dua, these landmines, now you see where the conflict is happening. You understand that you want to raise your duas, but at the same time, you've got these landmines that are like, that are just going to maim you and make you hold back. And then you're just stuck in no man's land, a dua refugee in no man's land. You don't know how to move forward. You don't know how to move backwards. And you just need to step forward. So this is how you do it. This is how you do it. I have different techniques on how to raise my dua. I have different techniques on how to raise my dua. And here are 3 of them on how to do it. And let's see, I think we have a little bit, yeah, we have time. I look at a scale so technique number 1 is I look at a scale of good, excellent, outstanding. Good, excellent, outstanding. I take my dua and I say to myself, if my dua was a good dua, what would it look like if it was excellent? What would my dua look like if it was excellent? And then I do that. And then once I get the excellent version of the dua, then I say to myself, what would this dua look like if it was outstanding? Okay, so let's actually try that right now with one of your duas. So pick a dua that you would like to just work on right now. What's something that you're making dua for? You can type it in the comments or you can keep it in your notes. But if you type it in the comments, okay. So Tasneem says, bless me with a home. Sarish Shifa. Maryam, increase my iman. Financial business, home, financial business, weight loss, good spouse, publish a book. Okay. Have a baby. Source of income. You want to look at the type of duas that you're making. There's 4 basic types that just in my reflection, four basic types that of duas. There's reactionary type of duas. Reactionary type of duas is something happened to you and you're responding, such a responding in dua, such as a sickness, and then you're asking, oh Allah, heal me. Okay, reactionary type of duas. A second type of dua. So a lot of people usually get intense in their duas with reactionary types of duas. That's when they start really focusing on their duas and working on it, reactionary. The second type of a dua is proactive duas. Proactive duas are, where do you want to go? This is not something that's happened to you, but something, aspirational. Proactive is, this is where I want to move towards. So you're not just waiting for things to happen to you and responding in dua. You are looking towards the future and saying, these are the duas that I want to make. Such as if you're in your job, you might be saying, oh Allah, I want to be, the head manager at my work. Or oh Allah, I have 2 kids and I want a 3rd kid. Proactive. Number 3, these are your current life duas. Like, this is something that's happening to you day by day. I might in the morning do a to-do list and then make dua for those things and make dua, oh Allah, bless me with this and that. This could be, like the sandal strap. The Prophet ﷺ said that even if your sandal strap breaks, you should make dua for it. And recently I've been getting really excited about sandal strap duas. Sandal strap duas are like your shoelaces are broken and you raise your hands to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and then you make dua for it. They're so sweet because they're small duas, but when the dua gets answered, you're like, wow, this was amazing. And I have like 2 examples of that right now, but I don't have time to share with you the examples. So those are current life duas. These are like the smaller type of duas, current life situations. A lot of people go through their days. We were just talking about productivity, and they don't include dua in that. They just gotta like, this is my time management. These are my top 2 goals for the day. This is what I'm gonna do. But they don't, place their trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They just kind of go through life like that. So current life duas. And then you've got your standard duas, which are goodness in this life and goodness in hereafter type of duas. Goodness in this is, so that's like, duas that you've learned since you were a little kid. Allahumma ya muthabbit al-qulub, thabbit qalbi ala dinik. Oh, overturner of hearts, keep my heart firm on the deen. Those are like those dunya and akhirah standard foundational type of duas. So my question for you is this: which one do you tend to focus on the most? You can tell me in the comments, you can write it down for yourself, but which one do you tend to focus on the most? Or which one do you tend to neglect? Okay, so do you focus on or neglect? Neglect is a strong word, but not focus. So a lot of people are focusing on reactionary. Reactionary, everybody is responding to reactionary, generally speaking. And to be honest, some people are only proactive. They're only making dua for the future. And then when difficulty happens, they don't turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when their sandal strap is broken, they don't remember to make duas. And they're just kind of like, oh Allah, I want to be CEO of my company. That's just all they're focused on. Okay. So here's activity number 2. Here's activity number 2. The 3 types of duas, I think it was summarized for us. Let me just get the summary. Whoever summarized, I think is Maria summarized. Can you copy paste it again so that people can see it? Yeah. So you got reactionary type of du'as. There's proactive du'as, current life du'as, and standard du'as. Write down which one you tend to focus on more. Okay, you've written that down. Which one do you tend to focus on less? You know, for me, I would say proactive du'as. I make du'a for proactive. That's like visionary style. And recently I've been focused on sandal strap type of du'as, like current day type of du'as. But I'd say I'm not paying too much attention to reactive du'as. I'm not paying too much attention to reactive du'as. So now the question for you is this. Try to come up with some outstanding du'as, just one or two for this purpose of this activity, one or two outstanding du'as that are of the type that you don't focus on very much. What are one or two du'as, outstanding du'as that are of the type that you don't focus on so much? Reactive du'a is some pain that happens to you and you respond by making du'a. Proactive du'a is nothing has happened, but you're looking to the future. You could almost say reactive is looking to the past, proactive is looking to the future. Then you've got your daily du'as, which are things happening today, sandal strap type of du'as. Oh Allah, help me to get my kids to school type of du'as. And then you've got standard du'as like you've learned since you were a kid and you've been repeating it your whole life. Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim, foundational. Okay, so pick one or two or design one or two outstanding du'as of the type that you normally don't focus on. I'll give you 2 minutes for that. So tell me, how did that make you feel? Tell me in the comments, how did that make you feel? Picking up on a du'a of the type that you don't normally make du'a for. What was it? Felt difficult? Felt special? Freeing? Relieved? Felt empowering, different, goosebumps? Felt uncomfortable, different, peaceful. I feel like when you start to, like if you're making this type of du'a a lot, changing it up, it's almost like if you always pray your fard prayers and you don't pray your sunnah prayers, but then you start praying your sunnah prayers, what does it feel like to pray the sunnah prayers? You just get like this refreshing breeze that comes in. And I think the similar thing happens, I mean, that's my experience with these type of du'as, is when you change up the kind of du'a that you're making, then, and it doesn't mean that you don't make du'a the other kind, you just like add to your repertoire of things that you're making du'a for. It just feels so refreshing. So as you can see here, there's a lot of things going on in our minds. And back to that original analogy that I started with, the landmines, that as believers, Allah is calling us to make dua to Him. And we want to make dua and we want to aim big and we want to, raise our hands to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But we've filled up the land in front of us with landmines in our own minds that when we step on them, we get this little explosion that doesn't kill us, but it maims us and it weakens us and it slows us down and actually might start to make you scared. And then you start to back up from making dua. And the consequences of that is, like I said, number one, that you're not going to be excited about your duas. You're going to stop making duas and your life's going to suck when you take away the power of dua from your lives. And then you ask, well, what do I do? How do I move forward on these landmines? And the good news is that these landmines is just a story you're telling yourself. It's not real. I tried to make the distinction to tell you guys, we're talking about raising your dua, but not necessarily that your dua has to be bigger. Okay, what's the difference between the two? So I have this like an example of one of our students in class. I asked him, what's your dream car that you want to make dua for? And he said, I want a minivan. And I'm like, are you serious? That's your dream car? You could ask Allah for anything and you want a minivan? And he's like, and I try to help him come up with something better. But at the end, I'm like, you really love this minivan from the bottom of your heart? And he's like, yes, I do. And I'm like, okay, then Bismillah, that is your dream dua, if that's what you want Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless you with. So just because you don't have to make dua for something bigger just for the sake of bigger. So that's not the end goal. The end goal is making dua for truly what comes from your heart. What's inside your heart, something that you care about, that's what you want to make dua for. Doesn't matter if it's bigger. The goal isn't that everybody opens up like Microsoft, opens up like a Coca-Cola company. The goals are all around the world. That's not the goal. The goal is that you make dua for the things that you care about from your heart. The second thing is aiming high does not mean that you neglect the hereafter. So this is something that I see a lot of people, and again, this is like one of those landmines where people think that if I aim for a successful life, that equals neglect of the hereafter. And that's not true. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us to make dua for the dunya, and it goes hand in hand with the hereafter. The believer, so the dua that all of us have memorized is رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسَنَةً وَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ. Nobody could ever say you cannot make dua for dunya, because Allah taught us and teaches us to make dua for dunya. Dunya meaning like worldly life things. But it comes coupled with dua for the hereafter. So you couple them that, oh Allah, I want a good life now. I want it all. I want a good life now, and I want a good life in the hereafter. So you're making dua for both. So aiming high doesn't mean neglect for the akhirah. And here's the good news is that when you say Bismillah, you're starting something and you're saying Bismillah, it means that it's for the sake of Allah, that you're starting in the name of Allah. And especially the exciting part is even the dunya things you're making dua for, you're bringing Allah into your equation, into your life success, so that you're bringing Allah into it. Success in this life does not come, outside of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's help. It comes with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's help. So I want to finish off with this ayah from the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, so how cool is this? Think about this. You make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it's so good that it gets featured in the Quran. Like, think about that for a moment. You make dua, and it's so good, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves it so much that it gets featured as the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran. And this happens throughout the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us examples of people who made dua, and Allah recorded it for all of us to read and take examples from. So this is in Surah number 38, verse 35. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about the dua of Sulaiman alayhi salam when he said, رَبِّ اغْفِرْ لِي وَهَبْ لِي مُلْكًا لَا يَنْبَغِي لِأَحَدٍ مِّن بَعْدِي إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ الْوَهَّابُ. So Sulaiman alayhi salam says, this is his dua, رَبِّ اغْفِرْ لِي, oh my Lord, forgive me, وَهَبْ لِي مُلْكًا, and give me a kingdom. So just right there, just hold on a second here. He said, give me a kingdom. مُلْكًا لَا يَنْبَغِي لِأَحَدٍ مِّن بَعْدِي. Not only give me this kingdom, but no human being after me can have it. A kingdom that I will be the only human being to have this kingdom. لا ينبغي لأحد من بعدي إنك أنت الوهاب. And he mentions the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Al-Wahhab, the one who gives with the gifter, the one who seeks nothing in return when he gives. Al-Wahhab subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what was Sulaiman given? Allah answered his du'as. Sulaiman alayhi salam was given the the power to command winds. You know, like these Marvel comics and Marvel superheroes. So Sulaiman alayhi salam for real had the power to command winds, and he had control over jinn, and he could communicate with ants. He could communicate with the animals. Subhanahu wa ta'ala. So back to what I said earlier, that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves a dua, that sometimes it gets featured in the Quran. Allah loved Sulaiman alayhi salam's dua. And so you ask yourself the question, how low are you aiming in your duas when you have examples like this? This is the power that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has and can give you. And inshallah ta'ala, that's what's waiting for you. Your dream life, your dream dua life is on the other side of realistic. Your dream dua life is on the other side of being realistic. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept from me, accept from all of you, and inshallah ta'ala.